You know what it is. Gunshots, gunshots, gunshots. This one's going to be about how the son of El Chapo duped Sinaloa cartel kingpin El Mayo Zambada, all right, to get captured by U.S. operation and then turned himself in. This is crazy, but this is what go on. This went on from back when I was on the street. I'm going to speak about this. Y'all need to know, and y'all need to sit back and listen. All right, let me start the intro. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. If you subscribe, hit the notification bell. And if you're just subscribing, also hit the notification bell. All right. You know what it is. Unique Mech Audio, man. This one's about El Chapo's son, you know, double-crossing, you know, his father's longtime friend. We're going to break it down. Sit back. Let me play this joint right here so you could, you know, get a little brisk of what the news is saying. All right?
The world's most powerful drug lords are in U.S. custody, including the son of former kingpin Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, both charged with flooding the United States with drugs like fentanyl and cocaine. CBS's Manuel Bojorquez reports that federal agents used trickery and deception to make the arrest.
This photo obtained by CBS News shows 76-year-old Ismael El Mayo Zambada, a leader of the Sinaloa cartel, just before he was duped and apprehended by U.S. law enforcement after a months-long operation to capture him. CBS News has learned Zambada thought he was flying to see property in northern Mexico Thursday, but was instead flown to a small airport outside El Paso, Texas, and promptly arrested. He was lured, according to multiple sources, by someone close to him, Joaquin Guzman, a top cartel official and son of the notorious drug lord known as El Chapo, in an act of betrayal. Guzman was also arrested. The reason he cooperated, not immediately disclosed.
The Justice Department will not rest until every single cartel leader, member, and associate responsible for poisoning our communities is held accountable.
The men are accused of running one of the most powerful and ruthless criminal organizations in the world. The DEA says the Sinaloa cartel generates billions each year and is the largest supplier of synthetic drugs like fentanyl into the U.S. It's helped fuel an overdose epidemic. Nearly 75,000 Americans died from synthetic opioids last year.
Guzman is expected to face a judge in Chicago next week. Zambada pleaded not guilty, today in El Paso. He's been quoted in the past as saying that should he be captured, there are plans for the cartel to continue, so drugs likely will still flow to the north as long as there's a market for them. Major.
All right, so that's what it is, right? Now, El Chapo's son, they saying that I'm going to run this back so we get a good backdrop right here, right? El Chapo's son, right? They said that he worked with the people. Let's see why he allegedly did this, right? We're going to see why he allegedly did this. Guzman Lopez, 38, wanted to avoid what he feared would be a violent end to his drug trafficking career, right? This is why they said he allegedly did it, right? Lopez was the financial brains behind the Sinaloa drug cartel that he and his three brothers had inherited from their father, Juan El Chapo Guzman, who was captured in 2016. Now, here goes a statement from the officials. According to the Justice Department, both men are facing multiple charges for leading the Sinaloa cartel's criminal operations, including its deadly fentanyl manufacturing and trafficking networks. Ismael El Mayo, right? Ismael El Mayo Zambada Garcia, 78, the founder and allegedly leader of the notorious Sinaloa cartel, along with the son of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, were arrested Thursday by federal authorities in El Paso, Texas. The U.S. Department of Justice announced Thursday. Two officials told Rutgers that Garcia and Lopez were detained after landing in a private plane, right? FBI Director Christopher Ware said in a statement that the agency and the U.S. Department administration arrested the two alleged cartel leaders who have eluded law enforcement for decades. The two alleged cartel leaders, according to Wavy, will now face justice in the United States after they oversaw the trafficking of tens of tons of pounds of drugs into the United States and related violence. Both men are facing multiple charges leading the cartel's criminal organizations, including its deadly fentanyl manufacturing and trafficking networks. Now, let me give you a brief history on the cartel, because I dealt with the cartel back in the days, and that's what I went down for and got my life plus 20, all right? The arrest of El Mayo and Guzman Lopez follow other notable arrests of cartel leaders and associates, including El Chapo, another of El Chapo's sons, and an alleged cartel leader, Ovio Guzman Lopez, and the cartel's alleged led the Secada, Nazca, El Nini, you know what I mean? According to the Department of Justice, right? The arms game in Mexico. Mexico cartels boast of increased lethal firepower, including some weapons from the United States. El Mayo, who evaded capture for years, had continued to run the Sinaloa cartel from Mexico after El Chapo was extradited to the United States in 2017 and was captured in 2016. And he was sentenced in 2019. To maximum security prison. He's in 88 Supermax, where I was at back in the day, so I know what he's going through. That's nothing nice on the head, because you have no human contact. You don't even talk to anyone except when the police come to your cell for something. Now, the two co-founded the cartel and for decades grew a worldwide network that traffics fentanyl, methamphetamines, cocaine, marijuana, and heroin. After El Chapo's extradition, his four sons inherited his global drug empire, winding in reach as one of the biggest exporters of fentanyl to the United States. According to the fifth superseding indictment filed in February, El Mayo led the cartel from 1989 to 2024 as the criminal enterprise imported and distributed massive quantities of narcotics, which generated billions of dollars in profits. The Sinaloa cartel pioneered the manufacturing of fentanyl and has for years trafficked it into our country, killing hundreds of thousands of Americans and devastating countless communities, said Secretary of Homeland Security Micrax in a statement. Today, two of the cartel's alleged top leaders, Ismael Zambada, Garcia, El Mayo, and Juan Guzman Lopez, are in U.S. custody and will be brought to justice. El Mayo charged with conspiracy to manufacture, distribute, and, fentanyl, right? Now, in the last indictment in February, federal prosecutors charged El Mayo with conspiracy to manufacture and distribute fentanyl. El Mayo was previously charged in 4 other superseding indictments with running a continual criminal enterprise in addition to murder, conspiracy, money laundering, conspiracy, and other drug-related crimes. The 5th superseding indictment extended the end dates of the criminal enterprise and several conspiracies from May 2014 to January 2024, according to the U.S. authorities officials of the Eastern District of New York. As alleged, El Mayo is charged with numerous drug offenses, now including the manufacturing and distribution of fentanyl, a deadly drug that was largely unheard of when he founded the Sinaloa cartel more than 3 decades ago, and today is responsible for immeasurable amounts, said the attorney, U.S. Attorney Brian Peace in a statement in February. Allegedly, the leader of the Sinaloa cartel, El Mayo, employed individuals and are hitmen to carry out the organization's criminal operations, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. Now, the individuals would secure transportation routes and warehouse to import and store narcotics, as well as commit murders and kidnappings in Mexico to retaliate against those who threatened the cartel. The cartel's operations generated millions of dollars from the drug sales, which were then transported back to Mexico, the U.S. Attorney's Office said. Before El Mayo's arrest on Thursday, the Drug Enforcement Administration had been offering a reward of $15 million just for his capture. Not his conviction, just for his capture. Now, drug cartels at the heart of the U.S. crisis is what the Department of Justice is saying. The Sinaloa cartel is considered to be the largest and most powerful drug trafficking organization in the Western Hemisphere. Although the cartel is largely involved in drug trafficking, some fractions also deal drugs, tax, other criminal networks, including human traffickers. In other words, they allegedly be extorting everybody. If you get in any part of the bag in Mexico, they want to cut. Right? In the Drug Enforcement Administration 2024 National Drug Treatment Assessment, the agency noted that synthetic drugs such as fentanyl and methamphetamines are responsible for nearly all of the fatal drug poisonings across the country. So now they're holding them responsible for all of the death. So you don't know if it's their drugs or someone else is making it or what is going on, and you know they're not the only ones making it, but this is what have to go down in the sentencing to determine the drug amount. Now, the drug poisonings are the leading cause of death for Americans between the ages of 18 and 45, according to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention. In 2022, the CDC estimated that over 110,000 people in the United States died from drug overdose, with almost 70% caused by fentanyl and other synthetic opioids. The Sinaloa and Jalisco cartels are the heart of this crisis, the Drug Enforcement Administration assessment states. The scope of the Sinaloa and Jalisco cartels control over each segment of the criminal drug trade has effectively eliminated and any competition in the United States market, enable cartel members to establish a presence in the United States. In other words, they taking out their ops. You know what I mean? The USA Today network has reported the far-reaching impact of cartels in western U.S. regions, including near the Portland area and the Patton Sound and Alaska, in which drug traffickers target communities to help cartels expand their network. A new era is coming for Mexico's powerful Sinaloa cartel in the wake of the capture of the U.S. authorities of Ismael El Mayo Zambada, the last of the grand old Mexican drug traffickers. Now, experts believe this arrest will usher in a new wave of violence in Mexico, even as El Mayo could potentially provide loads of information for U.S. prosecutors. So bottom line, they're expecting him to flip. Removing him from the criminal landscape could set off an internal war for control of the cartel that has a global reach, as has occurred with the arrest or killings of other kingpins, and opened the door to the more violent inclinations, you know what I mean, of the younger generations of the Sinaloa traffickers. In other words, the young boys gonna come in, they more violent. You already know our young boys, they bust their gun more than anybody else, right? With that in mind, the Mexican government deployed 200 members of its special forces Friday to the Sinaloa state's capital. There is significant potential for high escalation of violence across Mexico, said Vanda Felaba Brown, as a senior fellow in the Strobe Tablet Center of Security Strategy. That is bad for Mexico. It's bad for the United States, as well as possibly that the even more vicious new generation cartels would rise to even greater importance. For that reason, El Mayo's arrest could be considered a great tactical success, but strategically problematic, right? Because that reminds me, right? We're going to ride a little bit. That reminds me of when the United States, George Bush went in and he took out Saddam Hussein because he said that he was oppressing the people, and they had all this agenda. They said that he had weapons, what they call it? WMD. You know what I mean? Can't say the word on YouTube. So now they went in, they took him out, and from there, that's where the I people came in. You know what I'm talking about? In the black that was, doing all types of things that we were seeing on the news during that time. Sometimes you have to deal with the lesser of two evils, because at least they had some type of structure going on over in Iraq when this went on, and Saddam Hussein was in order, just like there's some type of structure now, while El Mayo and, El Chapo's son was in charge, right? But, it is what it is. Now, the catch story, while details remain scarce, a United States official who spoke on condition of, keeping it quiet, said El Mayo was tricked by into flying to the United States, where he was arrested alongside, El Chapo's son, just so you understand, right? Now, a small plane left Hermosillo in North Mexico on Thursday morning with only an American pilot aboard, bound for the airport in Santa Teresa, New Mexico, near El Paso, right? Mexican Security Secretary Rosa Laca Lopez said Friday that while one person left Hermosillo, 3 people arrived in Mexico. The flight tracking site, Flight Aware, showed the plane stopped transmitting its elevation and speed for about half an hour over the mountains of northern Mexico before resuming its course to the U.S. Mexican President Lopez Obrador, a vocal critic of the strategy of taking down drug kingpins, said Friday that Mexico had not participated or known about this operation, but said he considered the arrest an advance, meaning what the PIs explained. Now, Frank Perez, the lawyer for El Mayo, told the Associated Press that his client did not come to the United States voluntarily. In other words, he was kidnapped, but they say duped by El Chapo's son, allegedly. That's what they're saying. Juan Joaquin Guzman working with the government. Let's talk about this. It appeared that the sons of El Chapo Guzman were somehow in on the trap for El Mayo, said Rivals, the author of a number of books about the cartels. The so-called Little Chapo, El Chapo, Little Chapos make up a fraction with the Sinaloa cartel that was often at odds with El Mayo, even while trafficking. In other words, the younger fraction with El Chapo's son and the elder fraction with El Mayo, they just couldn't get along for whatever reason. They wanted to move in different directions, or maybe a more violent direction, right? the so-called Chapalitos, a little capo, Guzman Lopez, who was also arrested Thursday, is not his friend nor his collaborator, rival said. Trying to say they ain't friends. Okay, he is considered to be the least influential of the four brothers who make up the Chapalitos, who are considered among the main exporters of the synthetic opioid fentanyl on the United States. So they saying that the one that turned himself in, he's like the peon out the brothers, and that's how they wound up tricking him into believing. And I'm going to end it there and just freestyle from here. Right? Because we're going to ride. Okay, let me see. Now it's almost over. Let me just finish it up from here, right? It appears that some of El Chapo Guzman was somehow in on the trap for El Mayo, said Jose Rios, author of a number of books by the cartel. The so-called Chapalitos of Little Chapos make up a fraction with the Sinaloa cartel that was often at odds with El Mayo because he's too old to them. Guzman Lopez, who was also arrested Thursday, said that he's not his friend. He is considered to be the latest influential of the four brothers. In other words, he's a peon, like I said a minute ago. Now, right? Guzman Lopez is now the second of them to land in the United States. Their chief of security was arrested by Mexican authorities in November. Guzman Lopez has been accused of being the cartel's link for importing the chemicals used to make fentanyl from Asia and for setting up the labs that produce the drug, Revel said. Ann Milgren, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration chief, said El Mayo's arrest strikes at the heart of the cartel that is responsible for the majority of drugs, including fentanyl and methamphetamines, killing Americans from coast to coast. During the current Mexican administration, which ends in September, Mexico has been unable to control the country's violence. Lopez Alvarado's decision to focus on alleviating what he sees as the root cause of violence instead of confronting with the cartels has caused tensions with the U.S. authorities, in particular the DEA. Felba Brown said it has also allowed the cartels to accumulate power that is unprecedented in Mexican history. So, they getting billions of dollars and people is crossing the border because there's no money and they sitting there making billions a year. So you already know how that's running. The government, to me, seems like it's just in place as a structure and they free to do what they want to do. El Mayo would now offer reams of information about the cartel's operations if he decides to cooperate. He faces charges in multiple U.S. cities. If he decided to cooperate, he already cooperated and brought over El Mayo, so we know what time it is. El Mayo didn't know U.S. investigators had exploited a rift in the cartel, and Guzman Lopez was allegedly helping with Zambada's capture, the official said. FBI agents arrested both men in one of the biggest victories for U.S. law enforcement against the cartel. Now, let me say this so you understand. This is the way it go down, right? I've been on here already 23 minutes. That ain't bad. So now I'm going to just freestyle. Let's ride. Listen, back in the days, right, they used to have shipments coming in, and the cartels would tell on the cartel shipments to get their shipments in, Now, we have little El Chapo who made a deal with the Department of Justice that he would bring El Mayo in, who trusted him. That was his father's friend. I think he was even one of his father's son's godfathers, maybe his godfather. But they was that close. Mayo started the cartel, the Sinaloa cartel with El Chapo. And from them starting, that together, El Chapo got locked up, took his on the chin like a man and went and laid down. And he left behind 4 sons, One of them is Guzman Lopez, and, you know, this is what he does. He makes a deal with the government to bring him in. So obviously they lied to him and told him they was going to cut him loose if he bring him in. But I put this like that. There's no way he's not getting at least 30 years or definitely a life sentence. That's the end of the story. The government don't play fair. They tricked this young man into believing that they played fair and he can make a deal with them. And, you know, if he bring in the big boy. Now, this is crazy. Normally they tell the person telling, hey, you know, tell us who the big boy is so we could go get him. But this dude took it a step further and said, no, I'll bring him to you. And then obviously, you know, I would assume they told him, if you bring us El Mayo, we'll let you go. But instead, now they got him locked up. Young man, you're not going anywhere. Those of y'all that's in the street thinking y'all, you know, could outwit the government, outwit the system. You can't outwit the system because you have people like this that's behind the doors making all kinds of deals that's setting up their comrades. He actually brought the kingpin to the table and thought that he was going to get out. And he's also the kingpin on the other half. Not going to happen. Not in America. I hope, right, that he at least got a lawyer to negotiate whatever surrender that he did, you know what I mean, to bring in El Mayo, because he ain't going to make this, he ain't going to get away with doing no time. He's still going to get a bag of time, and that's it. You know, they got an extradition thing. Let's ride. They got an extradition thing that says a lot of countries say they do not send their citizens to the United States because they don't believe in a life sentence. Now, so they capped it at 30 years, the most you could get. But as you see, El Chapo still got life. Now, I ran to a bunch of dudes while I was doing my life sentence in the feds that had tons of cocaine and only got 30 years while I'm sitting there with only 255 keys they decided to give me, but they said it was 330 from their calculation. And I got life, and here goes a man right next to me while I'm in the prison that had tons that got 30 years. I met some with 15 years for, you know, for tons. Now, you got little El Chapo over here and think he's going to get a deal. Listen, man, get out the street, y'all. Don't get involved in this. None of this is worth it. Don't say I didn't tell you. It's not worth it. This man thought he could actually make a deal with the government, you know, that if he bring in the big boy, they'll let him fly back to Mexico and continue flooding America with fentanyl. Right now, there's too much technology. Back in the days, you know, they allegedly may have, you know, done something like that to be able to control the drug trade. But right now, they got too much eyes on them with all this technology, so they can't, you know what I mean, make that type of deal with you, little Chapo. That's the way that works. No disrespect. Just keeping it 100. So don't y'all think that you're going to go in there and make a deal with the government. Look what they're doing with Little Woody. You know what I mean? Just look what they do with anyone that tell. You never come out on top when you tell. It just don't work that way. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Hit the notification bell if you subscribe, and hit the notification bell when you subscribe. And cop the book of Roy in Harlem, and know that crime don't pay. And over here, Unique Maker Audio, we're telling you don't get involved. It's not worth it. Get off the street. All right? So don't say I didn't tell y'all. Let's tap out right now. All right?
Cheers, cheers, toast the crime, toast the crime, the crime, the crime, the crime. What? Fresh out the can of 26, yeah. He back on the strip, getting back in the mix. Yeah. What he mentions a gift. You stand up 10 toes down, and I suggest you pay attention to this. Real. Take a little gully posse and put it in Harlem. He cut from the bottom, came up from the bottom. Drop the book, you should go and get it. The Instagram page and the YouTube, you could go and visit. Then you could consider yourself LinkedIn. Sit front row and get Jews from a kingpin. How he went through it, so you ain't gotta go do it. To not pay attention would be stupid. Talking about a man that probably put your grandfather on. Probably the reason that him and your grams got along. A man that generated millions on the block, did his time, never squilling to the cops, make an audio. 2 G's in the 90s. Drop top Beamer so shiny. I let shorty go, she was whining. Treat her like my past, she behind me. Spend a couple bands on the Dapper Dan. You be back again, getting green like a Packers fan. No cap, it's a raw in Uptown. They be horn Uptown, Dominican bust downs. Now we on the positive, we got a lot to give. Now he trying to stop the kids from being inoperative. So take heed, homie, lend an ear. He started in Uptown, he gon' finish dead. But now it ain't about selling drugs, buying cars. It's about buying property to make the community ours.